In the volatile landscape of 2026, a shocking comparison has emerged from the influential voice of VeryDarkBlackMan. He labels the current South African movement as the Cain of this generation. The metaphor is deep, a brother striking down a brother out of envy for the Abel who works harder. It is a spiritual and social indictment of a nation turning on its own blood, fueled by a narrative that migration is the sole cause of local suffering.
Johannesburg, once the symbol of the Rainbow Nation, is now a flashpoint for xenophobic rage. By June 30th, 2026, the rhetoric shifted from policy to physical hunting. Groups move through the city center, their presence halting the pulse of the economy. The police, heavily deployed, stand between protesters and the very immigrants who have spent decades helping build the infrastructure they now stand upon.
The primary grievances cited by the protesters are twofold: jobs and women. There is a deep-seated frustration that West Africans, particularly Nigerians and Ghanaians, are taking opportunities and the hearts of local women. However, VDM challenges this, suggesting that if the locals were good enough, employers wouldn't look elsewhere, and women wouldn't seek partners who they perceive as more caring or provider-oriented.
Historical perspective is often lost in the heat of a protest. VDM points out that the modern South Africa being enjoyed today was built on the sweat and investment of many nationalities. Chasing away the hustlers who flipped 10 rands into 5 million is, in his view, an act of economic suicide. The mentality of the hustle is what keeps the engine of the continent running, yet it is being met with hostility.
The irony of the current situation is the betrayal of Nelson Mandela's legacy. Mandela, who was sheltered by West African nations during the struggle against apartheid, would surely weep at the sight of his people hunting down the very brothers who supported their liberation. Nigeria, Ghana, and others didn't just give moral support, they gave their resources to see a free South Africa. VDM doesn't spare his own country. He admits that the reason so many Nigerians are in South Africa in the first place is the failure of Nigerian leadership. With vast mineral resources like gold, oil, and tin, Nigeria should be a paradise. Instead, bad leaders like Tinubu and the ones before him have forced the youth to seek greener pastures elsewhere, making them vulnerable to foreign hate.
West Africa is arguably the richest place on earth in terms of raw materials, yet its people are treated like unwanted guests across the globe. From lithium to cocoa, the wealth is immense, but the systems are broken. VDM's message is clear. The minerals mean nothing if the light of ideas cannot be brought to life due to a lack of physical power and vision from the top. June 30th, 2026 was set as a chilling deadline. Vigilante groups and certain political voices told illegal migrants to leave or face the consequences. This led to a mass exodus of thousands who didn't want to risk their lives. The scenes at the borders and consulates were heartbreaking, as people packed decades of their lives into single suitcases to escape the rising tide of violence.
Governments across West Africa had to step in. Ghana and Nigeria organized charter flights to evacuate their citizens. Over 900 Ghanaians were repatriated in just one wave. These weren't criminals. These were business owners, teachers, and students who felt they were no longer safe in a country they once considered a second home. The cost of this mass movement is yet to be fully calculated.
Operation Dudula and other groups have been at the forefront of the cleanup operations. They claim to be targeting illegal activities, but the reality on the ground often looks like the harassment of any black person with a foreign accent. They move door to door, demanding documents, creating a climate of fear that has paralyzed many communities. The irony of chasing away job takers was revealed in the latest economic reports. In the last quarter alone, South Africa lost over 121,000 jobs. It turns out that when you chase away the business owners, the investors, and the skilled labor, the entire ecosystem collapses. The very people who wanted more jobs for themselves are now finding there are fewer jobs than ever before. The South African taxi industry, a pillar of the local economy, is feeling the pinch. Taxi drivers are complaining that they no longer have passengers. The thousands of migrants who use these services daily are gone. Drivers who recently bought new vehicles are now facing repossession because they cannot make their daily targets. The streets are quiet, and the money has stopped flowing.
Township economies rely on spaza shops, many of which were run by Somalis, Ethiopians, and West Africans. These shops have been looted or shuttered. Now, locals find they have to travel miles to find basic goods at higher prices. The cleaning up has left a vacuum that local entrepreneurs are struggling to fill, leading to food insecurity in vulnerable areas.
In Abuja, the reaction has been swift and stern. Nigerian youth leaders have issued a reciprocal 30-day ultimatum to South Africans living in Nigeria. If the attacks don't stop, they warn that South Africans and their businesses, of which there are many in Nigeria, will face similar pressure to leave. This eye for an eye approach marks a dangerous escalation in diplomatic relations.
The stakes are billions of dollars. South African giants like MTN and DStv generate massive revenue from the Nigerian market. During previous xenophobic flares, these businesses were targeted for boycotts. VDM reminds South Africans that while they chase individuals, their corporations are thriving in the very countries they are insulting. If Nigeria closes its doors to these companies, the South African economy will bleed.
Xenophobia has a nasty habit of evolving into tribalism. Reports are surfacing of South Africans from the Limpopo province being targeted in Gauteng because they look foreign or speak a language that the protesters don't recognize. The fire of hate, once lit, does not discriminate. It begins to consume the very nation that started it.
At the Bait Bridge border and other crossing points, a humanitarian crisis is unfolding. Thousands are stuck in processing centers with little access to food, water, or sanitation. Governments are struggling to manage the volume of people returning home. It is a mass movement of people that the continent has not seen in years, all driven by fear of their own brothers.
President Cyril Ramaphosa finds himself in a diplomatic nightmare. He must balance the anger of his voting base with the international condemnation of the violence. While he speaks of Pan-African solidarity, his government's slow response and the deployment of massive security forces tell a different story. The world is watching to see if South Africa remains a leader on the continent or retreats into isolation. The message to Nigerians and other West Africans is clear. Your life is worth more than any amount of money. If you live in fear, it is time to reconsider your place. To the South Africans, the warning is equally stark. A nation that hunts its brothers will eventually find itself alone and broken. The path forward requires a return to hard work, competition, and the true spirit of Africa for all Africans.
This 2026 crisis is a wake-up call for every African. We must address the failures of our leaders and the poisons in our hearts. Only when we treat each other as brothers rather than competitors for scraps will the continent truly rise to its potential. If you found this story insightful, please like, share, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe to support our journey into the truth.